Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillah, bithni Allah ta'ala. Everybody is in the best state of Iman and staying focused and trying to grow in their deen. So being that this ain't a late night session, but we got all the brothers and the sisters. What we working with is 29, right? Right, D? Alhamdulillah. So it's 29 people plus their children in the house. So instead of waiting for everybody to come in and I talk a little bit in the intro, everybody is here. So what we gonna go through is explain some foundation and basic things, kind of mainly for the new shahadas, and then also for some Muslims who've been Muslim for a very long time and may not really know the basis and foundations of these things. So a couple of questions that I was asked outside of the group. A couple of new shahadas hit me up and was asking me, one, what's the difference between inshallah and bi'idhni? Some would say bidhni Allah, bi'idhni Allah. However you want to pronounce it, we understand what you're saying. So with inshallah, that's more like if Allah wills it, if it's the will of Allah. Bi'idhni Allah is more like more emphasis on I want Allah to make it happen. You know what I'm saying? More by the permission of Allah. Like Allah, more like Allah assists me in this, what I'm asking for, as opposed to the decision is yours. If you want me to go do this, I want to do this tomorrow, inshallah, I really want it. But if I really want it, then I'm going to say bi'idhni Allah. Like Allah help me to get it going. Not like just it's up to you, it's in your hands. If you want me to go, then I'll go. So that's the difference between inshallah and bi'idhni Allah. And you will see both terms in the Quran in Arabic. And you will be able to notice the difference in bi'idhni Allah and inshallah when you see it in the Quran. Some people translate it, like in some English translations, I see where they're translated as by the permission of Allah, for bi'idhni Allah, with the permission of Allah. And then, of course, with your inshallah, some of the English I see it translate, if Allah wills it, if Allah wills it. But alhamdulillah. And then the last little question about me and deeds. So Africa, Rashid, Sheeds, and Deeds is the same person. I call him Deeds because he do good deeds. He called me Sunnah because I do a lot in his eyes from the Sunnah. But Sunnah been my nickname for years. So my deeds may be more in accordance with something I seen. His deeds may be in accordance with what he feel. So that's why I call him Deeds. So that's the same person. No, we don't have no real beef. Them inside jokes between me and him. And we joust at each other, but that was the basis and the foundations of when we met as kids. It's really kind of an Illinois thing. You know, where we poke at each other, we keeping each other sharp. You know what I'm saying? And it keep us to a point where we'll try to talk over each other's head and catch it. Then that way when we in different surroundings, because when I generally travel, it's Deeds always with me. When I'm going to Philly, when I go to Jersey, anywhere where I'm traveling, 90% of the time, me and Deeds together. So, you know, if anybody be getting to trying to talk over our head, not just mindless speculation, we generally gonna catch it. We keep each other sharp in that regard. So it ain't no real beef between us. You know, those little inside jokes that me and him have. So you know, alhamdulillah. So let's get to it real quick. So where I want to start is breaking down, because this I'm gonna answer the question in some detail, where individual was asking me about Bidah and deviation, and we're gonna explain like how some of the. That's why I'm titling this "Clearing Up Misconceptions," and we're gonna discuss how certain misconceptions came into the deen, what's legal, what's not legal, and those type of things. So we're gonna put up right here. We're gonna go with the term Bidah, and I'm gonna show y'all where some of the mistakes is being made. So Bidah, a lot of stuff in Arabic has two definitions: what it means linguistically, right, and then what it means in the Sharia. So what does the term mean is in Islam? So Bidah linguistically, which they translate to in English a lot of time, innovations, right? Innovations. So, and I'm gonna put Bidah up under there. So innovations, right? Now, in linguistically, let's break down what innovations mean. Let's say it was a day in a time. Let's say, for instance, people was hot. So, you know, they may have fanned themselves like this with their hand. We talking about we going way back in the day. Then, eventually, somebody may have came up with a concept, and let's say they used something, and then they fanned themselves like this. So what you seen was, from this idea, however it started, they came up with the concept of hand fans, regardless of what they look like. Some of them, they have a little stick and some type of paper or cardboard. You fan yourself. Or they have the ones that you can lock them and you can open them up and they spread out like a little fan and they fan themselves. So that's an innovation of this. Then they took those hand fans, and when electricity came about, they started making forms of a fan that you can plug in the wall. So now you got fans that you can plug in the wall, and then you got fans that you could put in the ceiling. But what was better than that? You start being able to get an air conditioner which blows colder air, and you put it in your window. What did that evolve into? Right? That evolved into where instead of buying air conditioners and putting it in your window, you could get what they call central air in your house, which it'll blow through all the vents in your whole house, where cool air just blowing through your house all at one time. You understand? That's an innovation. Okay? So, Sharia based, so a lot of people, and it's due to education, and I understand it. So what a lot of people will say is to try to cloak things under Bidah, and this is where the conversations get sticky, when people driving down on people and they have a limited understanding of what certain things mean. So what a lot of people will say Bidah means is anything that the Prophet didn't do. The Prophet never did that. His companions never did that, right? But or they'll say a newly invented matter in the Islam. Real base, and I'm not saying there's no reality to those concepts, but in Sharia based, Islamic based, the term Bidah legally means that anything that goes against the Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma. So technically, a Bidah in Sharia means it goes against the Quran, the Sunnah, and Ijma. So, let's say for instance, so this is where the trickiness comes in. Where people are play on the word. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions never had carpet in the masjid. Do that mean it's a bid'ah? Right? Now, linguistically, yeah, it is a bid'ah because it was something that started off as something and then it came in to make worshiping in the masjid easier. Just like going from this to a plug-in fan to an air conditioner to central air. This was something that made things easier. Now, I'm not finna throw out no terms like this is a good hasanah, bid'ah hasanah. I don't do that. But I'm saying linguistically under that, it's a bid'ah. Now, is this a bid'ah that goes against the Quran and Sunnah and Ijma? No. So people have to learn these differences. Did the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam use a prayer rug? Now, we do know of certain things, different mats. If the desert heat was a certain way, because we know how the temperatures was there, they would use clothes or a garment to put on the sand or on the hot thing and pray on that to prevent from burning themselves. So these evolved in the prayer rugs. Like right now, where you can start to see now, they starting to actually have orthopedic prayer rugs. For like people who got bad knees, people who elderly, they actually have orthopedic prayer rugs and they real thick, almost pillowish. Do that mean that they can't be used because the Prophet and his companions never even considered an orthopedic prayer rug? No, because it's something that actually makes what you're doing in Ibadah easier. You understand? Just like this right here. If you go and look at when they was elderly and they was sick or they had different things going on and they sat down in a prayer, did they sit down in chairs? I'm going to leave that one up in the air because technically it's a possibility that you can have some ignorant Muslims that say sitting in a chair when you hurt or praying, because praying sitting down and praying sitting down in a chair, it might not be the same thing as what the companions them did. They may have sat on the ground. So you have some Muslims who might see some people in the masjid sitting in a chair, some elderly sitting in a chair. That ain't what the Prophet and the companions them did. You an innovator. You up on some bid'ah. So therefore your masjid not stopping you from doing it. So now the whole masjid is a masjid of bid'ah. But when you have to understand Sharia and you understand the differences between linguistically and Sharia based, because Sharia based bid'ah, what goes against Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma, these bid'ahs lead to the hellfire, right? And then even of those bid'ahs, there's two types. One that takes you completely out of the fold of Islam, and then one that doesn't take you out of the fold of Islam. Now, when there is a real bid'ah, there's a certain way that you deal with people when you see them on bid'ah. So technically, dealing with people in the wrong type of way, and if you add that to the religion, you've done what? You've created a bid'ah. Because once you start to teach people, this is how you have to deal with individuals, now you've introduced something new to the religion. Especially if you tie it to Ijma. This is what the Salaf did. And they may not have done that. So sometimes you can do something and now you're creating a bid'ah. You understand? So that's why we have to be careful in understanding what bid'ah is. Some things actually be a deviation. It might not technically go against the Quran and the Sunnah, but it's a deviation from what they did that might make it possibly borderline, because like sometimes it could become, because you have your rulings, it might be considered makruh. It's disliked, it's highly disliked, it's almost disgusting that y'all doing it, but it might not be haram. That's why you have bid'ah that take you out of the fold, and then you have some bid'ahs that don't necessarily take you out of the fold. But one thing about it, even if it don't take you out of the fold, it doesn't count. So that's the danger of it. It doesn't count. Those deeds don't count. You understand? So like even with the prayer beads, where people be like, that's a innovation. That's bid'ah. You got prayer beads, and I'm going to stop saying prayer beads because technically they're not prayer beads, they're dhikr beads. Right? So this is where the concept come in. If you using them and wrapping around and pray and you using it like a talisman, like it's protecting you, and you saying that's from a religion, that part is a bid'ah. Counting with your fingers and this and that, is this a bid'ah? No, because it's the same concept as this. And this is not just me, this is from the ulama. Now, of course, you do have, I've never technically heard a real scholar say that it was a bid'ah that goes against Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma. Now, I heard them use the word bid'ah as it's possibly that the Rasul didn't use them, but it don't go against Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma. What's the dalil for that? Because they started off they was a illiterate society. So for the people who couldn't count, the people who could count would give them pebbles. They would give them what they call date stones, basically the seeds out of a date. So they would give them 33 date stones, or it might be a mixture of some date stones or date seeds, some little pebbles or rocks that they pick up on the ground. So for the people who couldn't count, they know when they move one and go like this, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, they know when they got done, they did 33 of them. So that right there is the same way, just like how this type of fan turned into a fan and turned to an air conditioner. Eventually, they just started putting, instead of carrying these date seeds or these stones, these pebbles around in a pocket, they eventually started putting them on a string. So now they always on my string, whether they wore them like this or they did them like this. So you have a lot of people from the Salaf Salih that did use them. Now the hadith that they try to use to say that it is a bid'ah, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam never said it was a bid'ah. It was a lady who did know how to count. But I'm not going to add emphasis to it, but some of the explanations that I was given was that she did know how to count, but when she came to this region, the majority of the people she was around was doing it with stones and pebbles. So she just did it with stones and pebbles. The Rasul knew that she could count, so the Rasul never said what you doing is not permissible. The Rasul never said what you doing isn't part of the religion. The Rasul said for you, it will be better if you use your fingers. You understand? There's a reward in using it for your fingers. So it's better to use your fingers. Now, if you doing, when you go to Hadiths and you start to see Hadiths where it say stuff like saying Sami Allah, Sami Allah, Uli, no. Astaghfirullah. Subhanallah, Azim wa bihamdihi. Right? Or you could separate those two. I generally say them in one. Subhanallah, Azim wa bihamdihi. Right? So, if you saying something and there's no limit on how many you should say them, or if you're some of the hadiths that say if you say this 100 times, then you say this 100 times. Sometimes, and it's not necessarily at the salat. This might be while you in the marketplace. This might be while you sitting down just doing dhikr. Not know where Sufis and different people done changed it. There's certain hadiths where it say this 100 times, say this 100 times, or numerous amount of times. Now you might be a person who may lose count with your fingers. So you might want to use some beads. You understand? If you can't lose, and now of course I'm going to say like the scholars say, like which they taken from what the Rasul said, doing it with your fingers is better. But I'm an individual who lost count. Now you do have people who going to say that's a bid'ah, but they don't have a full concept between linguistically and Sharia based, and as opposed to defining it as anything that goes against the Quran and Sunnah and Ijma, they only know how to say the Prophet never did that. You understand? And then it has to be in the religion, not something that makes the religion better. Because like I said, you could go on all day. Like right now you have a group of individuals who feel like because the masjid has a sadaqah box, it's a masjid of bid'ah. Now, did the Rasul and them take donations or collect for zakat, sadaqah? But yes, they did. So do that mean because a masjid has a sadaqah box to help with funding the masjid, or they may have different projects? This is to build the masjid, this is to do this is to do that. And if you want to keep your donation private, you can put it in there. Because some of the same masjids who say having a sadaqah box for donations in the masjid is a bid'ah because the Prophet them never did it, might just get on Instagram and say, we trying to build something, we need 80,000, whoever donate could donate. Or when the khutbah is over with, they announce it, or they have a dinner, they announce it, and then they still collect the money from them. So they still asking for donations. But my point is, some people will label the whole masjid a masjid of bid'ah because it has a sadaqah box in it. And then anybody who go in there, you can't salam them. This is not a religious innovation. So you have to look at the time. This is the type of innovation that's evolved, just like from this to the fan to the air conditioner to central air. In their time, they built the masjids with their hand. They didn't have electric bills. They didn't have water bills. You know what I'm saying? They didn't really have to maintain the carpet by shampooing it, having somebody come in and vacuum it. You understand? This is something where people come and walk in with their feet. They didn't necessarily have restrooms and things in the back. Kitchens where they cook it in there. So sometimes the masjid may smell like cooked food. Sometimes the masjid may smell like the bathroom from where it's lingering. So, you know, you got people who burning bakur in there, or air fresheners, or putting Glade plug in. All these things cost money. You got people who buying stuff to clean the toilets, right? Adding attachments so you can spray yourself, or buying things to fill with water. These things cost money. So allowing people to donate to that and just have a box, you just put your money in there, or they have a certain slot. This is for, we trying to start an Islamic school. These things aren't religious bid'ahs. So my point is, sometimes people be driving down on people because they done learned a small portion of what the word bid'ah means. And the person that they talking to may not even be on no bid'ah. The person might be doing something that they never seen before that's a part of the religion. And they don't say nothing. Now, this is with me. This is one thing that I don't respect, like I've seen in smaller towns. Especially like this one. You might see somebody doing something, and then individuals drive on them. We don't do no bid'ah. We don't play no bid'ah. But then go in the masjid and do some Bidah because this is a Bidah that the masjid established. The way that they do the khutbah might be a Bidah, but they not going to drive down on them. See, they not going to speak truth to the power. And that's what kind of separate me from them. I'm not going to drive down on this individual because I know the concept of the steps that you take if you do see somebody on a Bidah. I'll drive down on administration. And let's get some clarity. Like if y'all doing a khutbah that's innovative. And like I have seen that, and I done sat down and talked to them. I understand they trying to use a fiqh concept, which is batil, so that their understanding is based on some batil. So yes, it is a religious deviation, but unfortunately, this is the understanding that some people have. So they feel like what they did was ijtihad and came up with something that works for them. But unfortunately, it's bid'ah because some of these other groups who take bid'ah lightly, they'll take it as the linguistic version because they usually not Arab speaking people. So they'll blend these words in together and say, oh no, it's not, the way that we doing this khutbah, we making it easier for the people. This is something that's helping and aiding and making it better. You see what I'm saying? But they won't drive down on them. But they'll sit around and drive down on a smaller person, and this person might not even be on no bid'ah. But what does that do? It make them look like I'm a knowledgeable person. The bid'ah this, the bid'ah that. Just like with me, like what I explained. When I go to different cities, and I'm not advising everybody to do it just like what I'm with these. When we go to particular masjids and it just might be closer to where we stand, you know what I'm saying, and how we moving and we finna go in there and make salat, I am going to go in because this is what the Salaf would do. Because they might have some classes. And we there and be like, let's go check out the class. But I'm not gonna be driving down on the people. What's your minhaj? What's your Aqeedah? You know what I'm saying? Some of these newly invented ways of testing people. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do what the Salaf did. And then it's not for me to separate myself from them. But if I see they praying a certain type of way, like let's say for instance, we in there and they praying, and then next thing you know, they break out a little stone. And then they put it on the ground, or they break out some type of little something from the earth. And as they salat, they prostrating with their head on that little stone. I'm going to know what? I'm in a Shiite masjid. You see what I'm saying? You might go into a masjid and they might be Habashi. You see what I'm saying? So I'm going to know how to deal with them. I'm going to know what I can talk to them about, and then I'm going to know what I shouldn't do around them because it might be things that they don't understand. I'm going to know who I'm dealing with. So I'm going to deal with them on a different accord. You know what I'm saying? Because everywhere that where you go and you traveling, everywhere doesn't have a Salafi masjid, and every masjid that label themselves a Salafi masjid doesn't mean that you should go in it. And then some masjids that don't label themselves Salafi masjids, but they own a minhaj, and they say they're a Salafi masjid, but this group say no, they not Salafi because they not a part of our group. But it might be one of the best masjids you should ever step foot in. So I do that, and this is something that I learned from the Salaf. And I understand why they did it. And the concept with is, as important as the salat is, if you're not going to go in and look at the Quran on salat, and then touch the hadiths on salat, the multiple hadiths of salat, and what's agreed upon, if you don't care enough to do that with your prayer, then you're not going to be as careful in talking about the deen. Because if that part don't matter to you, ain't no telling what I might hear you say. So to me, because your prayer ain't in accordance with what's accurate, you not safe to listen to for me. You understand? I'm not even finna go through. Now this is just a personal decision. But like I said, I'm not saying that like ain't nobody in here that should be listened to. I don't do that. I'm just gonna be like this. Okay, this what type of environment we in. You know what I'm saying? So we might not want to come to a class in here. They might be saying stuff like, "Yeah, we having a Talim later on today." I'm cool on the Talim. You know what I'm saying? Because to be honest with you, sometimes when you, with education, not putting myself above anybody or putting other people above anybody, if you in the 6th grade, right? And this can happen in Islam, and it does happen a lot. Okay? So when people say that they having a class, you're in the 6th grade. Now, they're going to have a class, but it's a 2nd grade level class. So the class, let me move out the way. So you a 6th grader, okay? The class is a 2nd grade class, but the person teaching it has a kindergarten level education. The person who's teaching it is a kindergartner. But they feel like because they may have a book or they may have something and they think it's as simple as all you got to do is look at it and the answers is in there. And that's why, like what I spoke in some of my videos, some people, the American system has just taught people how to answer questions, as opposed to being able to help people understand it or putting it into implementation. And then by that way, the way you look at it, you might misinterpret it. You see what I'm saying? Especially when it's left up. We not talking about little stuff that had like multiple choice like this right here. Let's say it's raining outside. Do you A, put on a raincoat, or do you B, go outside with an umbrella, or do you C, don't do any of it and go outside? Some people might look at it and say, dang, umbrella, raincoat, these both can be the answer. But the paperwork might explain the difference between a raincoat and an umbrella. Because it might say, take an umbrella outside just in case it rains. But if it's already raining, put your raincoat on and go outside. Because that's how intricate the deen is. But you might try to teach them to get an umbrella. Because you're a kindergartner trying to teach some 2nd grade level stuff because you have the book. You understand? So sometimes when you're a 6th grader and you sit down and say, man, they having a 2nd grade class. We gonna go in there and sit down and it's obvious the person who teaching it a kindergartner, we gonna be sitting up in there disgruntled. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna be sitting up in there disgruntled. And then they're gonna view it as, are y'all just looking for people mistakes? Because this is what happened. And alhamdulillah, the Khatib said this the other day in Jumu'ah service. And I'm only going to repeat it because he said it. That way for like people who live in this city that listen to my videos, they won't take it personal like I said it. What he said was, you have the individuals, he was like, they might say they having a Aqeedah, but it's all haram money, right? They not even doing what's supposed to be done ritualistically as far as the Aqeedah. But they just trying to invite a whole bunch of people, he said, just to say they have invitations, right? But I understand what he's saying, just so that you can have a whole lot of people there and hoping they're going to give you gifts for new babies is what he was referring to. And then he threw in, and your whole thing is you also wanted to show off what you have, where you live. And he said, then these people sit around and brag about all this wrongdoing. Because he even mentioned you might have ripped somebody off to get the money for the Aqeedah. There might be haram money. But he said, and these people, these Muslims, they get together and brag about these things, but why they don't get together and brag about how many rakats they did last night for tahajjud? See, he going through these things, and I understand, because when it goes to the Salaf, they used to get together in the morning, you know what I'm saying, after Fajr, because they ain't go to sleep after Fajr, and be like, man, I recited 20 surahs last night. I recited 27. Not as a bragging, they sharpening each other. Not about how much drugs they sold, what girl they laid up with, how they rip people off to have an Aqeedah that's not even within the legislation of the deen. So I'm mentioning that because when you're that, if you talk about what the prayers you did the night before, you studying Sahih Bukhari in this city, they're going to say, see, you think your Islam better than everybody else's, because they can't talk to you about that. But let's say, like for me, 90% of the time, if you see me driving around, you're going to see me in a hoopty, because I'm a Zahi. Not to say I can't get something that's not a hoopty, right? I'm not materialistic, because I used to be. But they'll sit around and talk about which one of their cars is the best. They'll sit around and talk about how their house is the best. My house is better than everybody, but they might be $150,000 in debt. They might be renting it from another Muslim and tricking everybody else into thinking they own it. And then they brag of these type of things that's materialistic. But when you have these conversations about the deen, man, you know, we said with such and such, we took such and such class last night. But because they don't take no class, they don't do nothing. If you had that type of conversation, what's going to be said? You think your deen better. You think you better than everybody else. But when it comes to what y'all feel like is materialistic and feel like Allah's blessing us because we have all this material, but your deen is doodle buns, right? When Allah bless you, He give you an understanding of this religion. Not put you $150,000 in debt with riba. So these is things that we have to understand. So sometimes when you on a certain level, you can't do that. But that's what the Muslim should be. Man, I got 2 jewels memorized. You understand? I was memorized. I'm working on this jewels. If you sit up and say to some of the Muslims in this city, man, what y'all working on over there? Oh, see, there you go with the interrogation. What you reading last night? Oh, well, I bought this book. I ordered this book. You bust it open yet? No, but I done told everybody I got it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody know I got it. Then you going to put yourself in a position like the Hadith about the donkey that carry around books. them books benefiting that donkey that's carrying them around just as much as they benefiting you. So these is concepts, man, that we want to avoid. So some people, like I say, some people may look at that as wrong. Well, I don't do that. But you might be on some haram things. I ain't going to the masjid to try to figure out. I'm trying to figure out if this a masjid where we should be like, you know what, when we come back, we come in here. Or when we come back, we going to go to another masjid if we want to take some knowledge. This masjid cool to come pray 5 times. But sitting around mingling and talking with the people where kindergarten is trying to teach 2nd grade education when you on the 6th grade, so therefore you know what they talking about not right and you know they shouldn't be teaching it. Why sit up and involve yourself in that type of fitna? And this is why the Salaf used to move the way that they moved. Because we came all this way to benefit. There's no benefit in this masjid. Let's go cross town to the other one. So that's why I do that. You know what I'm saying? But that may be a bit out of some people. Because they don't understand the difference. They blur both of these definitions. And they don't really have a real definition that a bid'ah goes against the Quran and Sunnah and Ijma. Their definition is the Prophet never did it. So a lot of times they don't know what they're talking about or the difference between deviation. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Alhamdulillah. And I just remembered that 3rd question. that I was supposed to answer. Alhamdulillah, Allah Musta'an. I'm going to touch it short, but now we're going to go to the Madhabs, right? They want to know about the Madhabs. But the third question they asked me was about, I did a video where I'm in my car on my lunch break about Dalil versus falsehood. So they asked me about the Hadith, the Athar that I was speaking on, where there's an individual, it was Ibn Umar, the son of Umar, the Khalifa, right? There were some people who was traveling. Same concept. Where they traveling? Okay, now this is from the Salaf. This is early on, because they actually end up meeting Ibn Umar, the son of Umar. They traveling, they're looking for some people of knowledge because they have some questions about the people in their region. So as they going on, they travel, okay, these people can't answer us. So they ended up going all the way to, I think he might have been in Kufa at the time. I'm not sure. No, matter of fact, that's my mistake. They was actually in Mecca because they decided to go ahead and make Hajj. It was Hajj or Umrah. So Ibn Umar was there. So when they got to Mecca, they started saying to the people, we need to meet a companion. We need to meet a Sahaba, somebody who sat with the Prophet, because we have some questions about the people in our region, basically what they teaching us, what they're passing off the knowledge is us. So this is early on. This is the Salaf. So when they got to him, they said, they meet Ibn Umar. They said, in our region, in our area, there's people who recite the Quran. Beautiful. They recite the Quran, they reread the Quran. They even seek knowledge. So they're students of knowledge, and they're people of knowledge. Some of them people consider to be imams and scholars in this particular field of what they're speaking of. So, that's alhamdulillah. Of course, a Muslim will be like, man, what's wrong with that? They recite the Quran, they read Quran, and they seek knowledge. That's alhamdulillah. They people of knowledge. Then they say to Ibn Umar, but, there's a but. But they teach people that the qadr of Allah doesn't exist. That is not a real thing. Right? So boom, like we said, and what they asked me about, like how does one end up like that? So this is the concept. Boom. Now our mind should click in the intellectual side. When you studied and you sat with people, how did this happen? They recite the Quran, they hafiz of the Quran, they got good memories. They read the Quran, they done went through it in order to memorize it for the ones who got it memorized. Right? And they seeking knowledge. They're students. They're teachers. How is it that they say that the qadr of Allah doesn't exist? Right? So Ibn Umar responds to them to let them know, when you see them people, you let them know they have nothing to do with us. I have nothing to do with them, and they have nothing to do with me. They're not on this deen. They're not from the main body. He didn't say that they wasn't Muslim. Right? They're deviants. They've deviated. Right? They got some Bidah in beliefs, and they've actually deviated from the path to the point where they've taken themselves out of the fold of Islam. And we got some of this concept where we're going to do this. So they've deviated and took themselves out of the fold of Islam, but they still can call themselves Muslims. Because they do what? Believe that Allah, they testify that Allah is the only deity worthy of worship. And they testify that the Rasul is the last and final messenger. So they Muslim, but they just not on the deen of Islam. They've deviated in Aqeedah, because not only the belief that they have is a bid'ah in belief, because it goes against the Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma'. But they people who read the Quran, they people who seek knowledge. Sometimes these type of things happen because Allah knows what's in their heart. When Allah wants good, That's how some people translate it in English. When Allah wants good, when Allah loves a person, He gives them an understanding of this religion. If you saying and teaching that the qadr of Allah doesn't exist, it isn't real, you don't have an understanding of this religion. So they're going to teach based off of that foundation. So now what they got to do, when they come across hadiths that speak about the qadr, or when they come across Quran ayahs, like I said in the video, there's a whole surah. The chapter is just a whole surah called the qadr, which speaks about the qadr that comes down during Ramadan. This is when the Quran came down. This is when the qadr comes down for the next year that's following. So now they got to make up something different to reject those things. Just like we was talking about in the Shahada class, you need to have a type of certainty which negates these type of things, right? So now they got to make up something else for the Quran ayats. The Quran ayats where Allah says every living thing is created with a qadr. Everything. How do y'all say it's not real? And then some people translate qadr as if Allah wills it and this type of thing, right? Now they got to make up something new. So inside of that belief, they got to change all the Quran and hadiths that go against it. And then they have to go against all of the companions who was in agreement, or the majority of them agree certain things about the qadr. Now they got to go against them. So what are they doing? They're creating another religion. Which is what? A Bidah that's taking them out of the fold of Islam. What they got going on in their heart, maybe they want to be, maybe they was just some people who wanted to show off. Maybe they just want people to think that they so knowledgeable, while Allah left them up on that, because there's Quran ayahs where Allah say when you a certain type of way, Allah just leave you up on what you want and let you wander around blindly until that day comes where you know what I'm saying, where it's time to put that belt on that A. So that's why we have to be careful, because I'm telling you, once you get a 6th grade education and then you see people who got a kindergarten level trying to teach 2nd grade, but at the same time won't even come sit in a 1st grade class, and you have some type of understanding, you're going to be able to look at them and say they wandering around blindly, but they can't fathom that concept, because Allah put them in a position where they dumb, deaf, and blind. But they can recite some Quran, they read their Quran, but how they keep passing over these ayats? That's because they're changing them to something that's pleasing to them. You see what I'm saying? So, alhamdulillah, man, that's a long answer, but hopefully you can understand that, and I'm trying to answer it by what Allah says. They had something going on with them where Allah left them wandering around blindly. And unfortunately, when you look at history, some of them died up on that. But not only that, right now, to this day, that belief system lives on. You have some people, like I said in the video, you have some people that say the qadr isn't real, and then you have another group of Muslims that say every last thing, a misconception of the version that the qadr, that we have absolutely no choices, we have no free will. If I, not me, alhamdulillah, I'm not going to say that, but like for some of these 6 people, an individual just jumped up, some type of weird individual, whether they was Muslim or not, and just went out and killed 1,000 babies. Their mind is Allah created them and sent that person. They didn't have no choice. Allah made them kill that 1,000 babies. Not the whispers and the was of Shaitan. Shaitan didn't influence him and let him do that. Now Allah Azza wa Jal allowed it to happen, but them babies might get Jannah. You understand? Something could have been going on with their parents. Just like when you read the Quran ayat, maybe them babies was going to grow up and kill their parents or be so corrupt in society. Just like when you read Surah Al-Kahf. We don't know why Allah allowed it. But for them to just automatically say, and it's done on evil and the shaitan control that person, because some people try to say, I can't stop drinking, I can't stop doing drugs because Allah, this is what Allah want me doing. I can't stop being a criminal because this is what Allah want me doing. So you had the two groups, they had those misconceptions. The Carter ain't real. Even Allah making you do all the bad with no choice. You can't control it. Not like you chose to do it. Instead of choosing the middle and with the understanding of the Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma, what the Carter is. Okay, so alhamdulillah. Let's get to the Madhabs real quick. You got to be careful, man. That's why this deen is something that needs to be learned. And I'm trying to squeeze in a lot of little stuff within a short period of time. As opposed to a person sitting in class Monday through Friday, passing tests and exams on this stuff where this stuff is more clarity. I'm trying to squeeze it all in just to give a brief understanding and concept where people can move forward. So you got madhabs. So you got Imam Abu Hanifa, which has the Hanafi school. Then you got Imam Malik, which has the Maliki school. So in between them, Dawood ibn Ali started a school. So these are what you consider, we just gonna say schools, right? Schools. Most people say schools of thoughts. And when they say thoughts, they basically limit it to these imams' opinions. You know what I'm saying? What they think. You know what I'm saying? To bring some more clarity to it. What they think. You know what I'm saying? How they felt about certain issues. About we'll put legislations. And the reason why, because a lot, not even gonna say a lot, because some of their bases didn't come from Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma for some of the rulings they had. Not intentionally, because some of the Sunnah hadn't reached them. Some of the Ijma hadn't reached them. They're in a time of destitute. There's not mailmen, there's not emails, there's not people like Imam Bukhari who collected everything and put them in a big book. There's not people like Ibn Kathir and Tabari and Qurtubi and these individuals who collected all these tafsirs and put them in one book. So it was certain things that didn't reach them, so they had thoughts and opinions that they made rulings with. So then you had, so in between them, there was a Dawood ibn Ali who started what was considered to be a Zahiri school. He basically used to fight against Imam Malik students, the Maliki school. He wasn't feeling the Maliki madhab at all, because some of Imam Malik works, pardon me, I'm going to pause the YouTube. We'll be back in a second. Inshallah. Okay, so I'm like, alhamdulillah. Where I put my marker at, man? I hope I ain't taking. I done left it. I got another one. Okay, so, yeah. Imam Malik. So, some of what's from Imam Malik concept is what some people start to I was wearing my shirt. I just felt it. Alhamdulillah. So some of the concept is what some people refer to as a muwatta, like 60 people said it, 60 people acted up on it. So some of what his book was, he kind of wrote down in the muwatta, some say, what he seen the majority of the people doing. So some people feel like because he was in Medina. You know what I'm saying? He lived in Medina. This is where he was born. He was born in Medina. So he's from the Salaf. All of them from the Salaf. You have some group who try to exclude Ahmed ibn Hanbal, but he's also from the Salaf, right? So like I said, some people try to exclude him. So we'll say there's a difference of opinion whether he was amongst the Salaf. So all of them from the Salaf. Imam Malik was around some. So you got the Tabi and the Tabi'in, right? So anyway, some of the concept is this is what the majority of the people was doing. So this is what he wrote down in the Muwatta. These are certain things that's said. Keep in mind, because this isn't a full class. This is just squeezing it in. Because I know it's some people who follow the Maliki Madhab, and I'm going to say this right here. And for us as black people, this is a mistake that we fall in. Although Imam Malik was from Medina, which makes him what? An Arab. But because there was Africans, keep in mind the first Hijra was to Africa. The second Hijra was to Medina. So they had companions who was tied in with Africa. So some people came from Africa. They came and learned from Imam Malik. So there's certain areas in Africa that where the Maliki fiqh is dominant. But us in today's time, we taking Maliki fiqh because it's dominant in Africa as the madhab for black people. So because we tying it because it's heavily influenced in certain parts of Africa, East and West Africa, right? That's the madhab for black people. So we want to follow it because it ties us to Africa, totally throwing out that Imam Malik was an Arab. So when we get to talking about these racist Arab scholars, not saying he racist, but this is an Arab's madhab. Okay? And I'm saying we making a mistake of sticking to it when it might not be the strongest. Okay? So by him being in Medina, and he reported what the majority of the people was doing, one thing you have to do when you dig into the books of the Salaf, when you dig into the Hadiths, where is some of the first reports of Bidah? Where did it happen at? In Medina. So Bidah, the first reports of Bidah, stuff that took you out of, that went against Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma, guess where it started at? In Medina. So that doesn't mean, so like when you go through some of his stuff, I'm not going to say there's some Bidah because of what Madhabs did, and I understand these two concepts. I'm going to say there's certain things concerning prayer and different things. I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to just say they are, this is a bad word. I don't even want to use this word. I'm not going to use any word. I'm not going to use any word. I will say this. They may need to be investigated. Now, due to the madhab and different things, do some say that they're permissible? That's the problem. Whether they permissible or not. Okay? So look. So in between them, Dawood ibn Ali, who came up with what they refer to as the Zahiri school. His main opponent was Imam Malik. He wasn't feeling all this stuff that Imam Malik, I can't necessarily, because see, sometimes their students did it. So like they say, when you really dig into some of these madhabs, especially these two, the Maliki, and some say Maliki, whatever you say, Maliki, Maliki, whatever you say, and the Hanafi, some of it was some of their main students' thoughts and opinions. Okay? So he wasn't feeling it. Now his school of thought, he was a reformist. He wanted to call people back to Quran, Sunnah, Ijma. He felt like they did too much qiyas, too much thoughts and opinions. We need a foundation of Quran, Sunnah, Ijma. Now, his school of thought, I'm not going to say it didn't live on, but certain people started joining it. You could see some reports for the people who know Sheikh Albani. There are some actual statements where Sheikh Albani says he's Zahiri in jurisprudence, Quran, Sunnah, Ijma. So some of his thoughts, some of Zahiri thoughts kind of got dispersed throughout different parts. Like some of it, Imam Hanif and them took a little bit of it. Imam Ahmed Ibn Hanbal, they pretty much absorbed it, right? So he was the one who started bringing back that concept, Quran, Sunnah, Ijma. So he basically, because him and Imam Malik was also in these African type areas, he was mainly debating against Imam Malik people, the Maliki Madhab. I'm not going to say Imam Malik as a person, but he was mainly against that school of thought. So like I said, this concept, Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, he was pushing that, right? So then you had Imam Shafi'i with the Shafi'i school, Imam Ahmed Ibn Hanbal. Now, what some of the people, which is just bananas to me, some of the modern people who follow the Maliki school of thought and Hanafi school of thought, they reject Shafi and Hanbali because they say they was, well, we ain't gonna use no big words. Let's put it this way. They refer to them as people of Hadith. They didn't understand thick jurisprudence or opinion. So because they was people of Hadith, they didn't understand thoughts and opinions. So they consider these madhabs deficient, and then they even go as far as to start to say this is what? Wahabism. Which anybody who understands what propaganda is, Wahabism is a propaganda. So they say Imam Hanbali, Imam Hanbal and some of Shafi'i, they basically birthed Wahabism, or which they want to tie to Salafiyah or Salafism, right? Because these things call to Quran, Sunnah, Ijma. We're not talking about the concept of the people. We're not talking about the flaws of the people. We're talking about the methodology. Quran, Sunnah, Ijma. Understanding of the Salaf. Ijma basically just boils down to understanding of the Salaf, or Salih, as far as the majority. The majority. Because you have isolated statements. The majority. So these, they say that these two were scholars of fiqh. So when you start to get into the books, Imam Hanifa is rejected in Hadith. Like the people who was alive at his time and the scholars who was around. Now, whether they were saying it because they was against him, whatever, but like I'm talking about like the older books I read, like especially some of the scholars in the path, all of them rejected Abu Hanifa in Hadith. He was weak. in hadith, but he was a real good person. He was an imam. So what they classify as fiqh, he was pretty good at fiqh, and this is my opinion, this and that. But in order to have real sound fiqh, what do you gotta have? You gotta have Quran and hadiths. And that's why you have a lot of people from the Tablighi Jamaat, because they're Hanafi, and some of them Deobandi, which some people refer to as extreme Hanafis. This is why they don't deal with hadiths. And this is why when you see some of their masjids, and we're not talking about the newer generation, because some of them is starting to turn back to hadith. But like some of the older generations that came down, just like here, there's a Hanafi masjid here. They tell you don't read books of hadiths. I sat down with them and really got to the bottom of it. They feel like Imam Bukhari was a student of Shafi'i. So what they say is Bukhari hadith, the hadiths in Bukhari is written, the hadith that's in accordance with the Shafi'i madhab. So Bukhari favors the Shafi'i and the Hanbalis. So they don't read Bukhari. Muslim, which was a student of Bukhari. Tirmidhi, they was students of Bukhari. Muslim, they was all under the same cloak. So they feel like hadiths, books of hadith, favor Shafi'i madhab and Ahmed ibn Hanbal madhab, because when you go through the Musnad of Ahmed Hanbal, the majority of what's his Musnad is in Sahih Bukhari. So they feel like they don't deal with the books of hadith because they were written in accordance to favor the Shafi'i madhab. I done talked to them. Okay? I even looked into it with some people overseas. Now I'm not saying this is the thoughts and opinions of every last one of them. So what they do is they stick to the books of that madhab. So you might have a scholar, but he's only a scholar in Hanafi fiqh. So he might be weak in hadiths. This is what people need to understand. That's why I say sometimes when people say a scholar say this and a scholar say that, a scholar of what? Because you might be asking a scholar a question about usul, right, which is foundations, right, or pillars. And this is a science. Usul is one of the sciences, right? Hadith, science. Fiqh, science. Of course, Sharia, science. Hadith, fiqh, usul, Sharia, and of course, tafsir. These sciences in Islam. So you can have a scholar of hadith, in which hadith and usul, you can kind of tie them together. Also with tafsir, but of course tafsir mainly deal with Quran. But they like when you read your books of tafsirs, they always tie hadiths to the tafsirs. So they thorough in hadiths as well. Then some may even throw in fiqh opinions. So you have two types of fiqh. You got fiqh of the madhabs, and then you got fiqh of Quran and hadith. Fiqh of Quran and hadith. You understand? So some people may just be a scholar of a madhab. So when you go to a masjid, they might be doing something that's in accordance with their madhab. That don't necessarily mean it's a bid'ah. It don't necessarily mean it contradicts Quran and Sunnah. You understand? So people just have to be careful in learning those things. So due to all these different schools of thought, one thing where people always say, well, they all based off Quran and Sunnah and Ijma. But what you will notice is they disagree a lot. They disagree a lot. You may find, just me, because I haven't went through a lot, there's very few things where I've seen all four of them agree in totality. When it comes to certain issues, it's very few issues that I've came across, but my knowledge is limited, that all four of them agree in totality. Like for instance, all four of them will agree that you have to make wudu and salat, because that's a usul. But they don't all four agree on what constitutes wudu outside of certain pillars. Salat, they all agree you got to make salat, right? They all agree. Look, they all agree that you got to make salat. They all agree you got to make salat 5 times a day. But all four of them make salat different. Okay? All four of them make salat different. Now, the major similarities is in these two. Now, because they don't really deal with hadith, okay, and because this kind of is muwatta, you may find things in their salat or in their wudu that you can't find in hadith. So when it comes to Shafi'i and Ahmed Hanbal, a lot of stuff that's in their madhab is in accordance with the Quran and the Sunnah. You just like no knock. I understand through the fuqaha and different things. You can't find an authentic hadith that say you're supposed to pray like this. And in fact, you can't find one hadith that says the Rasul prayed like this. And the one that shows that you should pray with your hands like this is weak, and it's somebody saying they seen Imam Ali, the Khalifa. They seen Ali do this. And then a hadith next to it was a correction where another person is saying, no, I seen him do this. You can't find no hadith that say that the Rasul said pray like this. Which I can't say started with the Maliki madhab. From my understanding, this started with the Shiites, because this is how the Shiites pray. But it's also in Imam Malik madhab, but you have some conflicting people. But when it comes to authentic hadith, when it comes to what the Rasul commanded, right, you can't find this. You understand? So that's why I say there's certain things in there. All I'm going to say is, I'm not going to say who right, I'm not going to say who wrong, because I'm not here to argue with them to bring these certain things is. A lot of what they doing ain't based off of, I ain't going to say a lot. There's certain things that's from their thoughts, their opinions, the dalil they had. This is what people taught them. This is what they seen people doing, but they didn't have hadiths. And that's why you had a person from the Zahiri school, Dawood ibn Ali, who Quran, Sunnah, Ijma used to beef with the Maliki school of thought. Hey, this stuff y'all doing ain't in accordance with the Quran and Sunnah. And that's why when you say to one of them, even whether it's arguing or not, where's the authentic hadith for this? That the Rasul did it. Where's the authentic hadith? And then what they'll say, well, a da'if hadith is still a hadith. And all this is why you have so much confusion and back and forth. And this is why you need to know who you're talking to, especially in the prisons, because it's just a mixture of all type of whoever they've talked to. So look, and then I'm going to wrap it up. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, we all got to get on with our day. Alhamdulillah. I just want to remove a little bit of this. So, and this is why you have individuals who don't like They didn't like Abdul Wahab. Some people try to say Abdul Wahab was killing people, this and that. Those are things that I don't know of Abdul Wahab. Now I will say this, throughout time, even with the Sahaba, it was Muslims that killed Ali. It was some people who referred to themselves as Muslims that Ali killed. Ali and his people killed because they was at war against each other. So when people talking about killing and different things that went on between Muslims that was at war against each other, whether not to say who's right or wrong, my whole thing is they was at war. Now, I knew during the time Imam Hanbal was tortured, beaten, and imprisoned because he wouldn't say that the Quran was created. Not only him, he was just one of the most famous imams. But Imam Shafi'i was tested with this. Because they wouldn't say the Quran was created. There was those Muslims who did that, they was beating and killing and torturing. But like for the people who say in this day and time that it feel like the Quran was created, they side with those imams who was beating and killing people because they wouldn't say the Quran was created. But they'll criticize Abdul Wahab because he went to war against people who rejected Quran and Sunnah and Ijma when they did the exact same thing. All I know is Abdul Wahab, I don't know about any of that killing. I go to what he called to. And he calls to Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma. And because the Salafis call to Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma, they tie both of that as Wahabism. So Zahiri, one of the first on record to do it, how can y'all, and who's from the Salaf? So because he's from the Salaf, technically you wouldn't call him a Salafi, but they act like Abdul Wahab came up with the concept of Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma. When let's look at the origins. What's the origins? Erase all madhabs, school of thoughts. What did you have? Rasul, wa Nabi, right? Was taught Quran and how to implement it. Quran and implementation. Right? So this is the prophet and messenger. What a messenger and prophet. Was taught Quran and implementation. How do you implement the Quran? It's referred to as the Sunnah. Where do you get the Sunnah from? Hadith. Right? So when it came to something where the Quran says when you reach an issue, refer back to the Quran and its messenger. So what does that come up with? When you refer back to the Quran and its messenger, then you come up with fiqh. How this issue should be understood when you issue a ruling. So how to implement the Quran, how to implement the Sunnah, and come up with fiqh was taught to who? The Sahaba. Which means what? Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma. That's the foundations. That's the foundations. So the call, regardless, because it proved them wrong, it left them without a leg to stand on a lot of times, and they was beating and killing these people, and some of them fought back. You understand? Whether Abdul Wahab removed his character, what he called to was haq. You can't debate Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma. But when you have particular, and I'm not saying anything about these imams, like I say, some of it boiled down to their students. When you reject hadith, we're going to come up with all these rulings, and hadiths don't matter. But then when you catch them doing something and say there's no authentic hadith in that, they'll say, well, a da'if hadith is still a hadith. Now, let's touch a ruling. So keep in mind, what's the origins? The Quran was taught to the Rasul and how to implement it. How he implemented it was a sunnah. Where do we find the sunnahs? In hadith. Quran say, when you come across an issue, refer back to Allah and His Messenger. What's that? Quran and Sunnah. Once you do the ijtihad on that, you come up with a fiqh ruling. How this should be understood. Who was this whole concept taught to? The Sahaba. That's why their understanding is important. And their understanding is ijma, which the majority agreed on. That's what ijma is. Consensus, as some people will say. Consensus. This is the consensus. So, their concept. So when and this is just knowledge, right? Now look at this concept, and I'm gonna show you how people who reject hadith, who play with hadiths and pick and choose, and don't really understand the science, the confusion that they cause. Okay, alhamdulillah. I'm finna wrap it up right now. So when it comes to hadith, you have grades. We're going to do the big joker, little joker, or the ace, king, queen, a spade concept. So you have what's sahih. Okay? Then you have what's hasan. Right? And then there's more grades, but we just going to go with your main three. I know I'm finna spell da'if wrong, but it don't matter. I done put 2 F's on there. Some people, I really usually spell it with an A. But anyway, we gonna spell da'if like this in English. So this is da'if. Weak. Right? Strong. Or fair. Some people just like to refer to it as it's fair. Strong, sahih, authentic. Authentic, or some people will say sound. Okay? Now, when it comes to, yes, a hadith that's da'if, but it's weak. Look, I done spelled that like the day of the week, alhamdulillah. But it's weak, right? Some weak hadiths is recorded so that if you come across somebody trying to teach it to you, you could look at the hadiths and say, no, this isn't something we're supposed to act upon. Okay? The only time a da'if hadith can be used as dalil in these cases. One, it doesn't go against the Quran, it doesn't go against the Sunnah, and it doesn't go against ijma. Alright? So, if it's da'if, it's da'if, no other reports on the subject. On the subject. If there's no other reports on the subject, and it doesn't go against Quran, Sunnah, or ijma, which means the Quran has been looked at, the Sunnah has been looked at, and what you tie up under ijma, we refer to as athar. So they basically hadiths, but not hadiths from the Rasul, hadiths from the companions. So that's what athar is. So it don't go against any athar, which athar basically mean narrations. So it don't go against the Quran, it don't go against the Sunnah, and it doesn't go against the athar. And there's no other reports on it, period, then that da'if hadith can be used. But all those circumstances gotta happen first. Now, so if there's something sound that's authentic, that's reported, you can't use a da'if hadith over one that's authentic. So, if authentic reports say the Rasul commanded us, if it say the Rasul commanded us to do a certain thing, wajib, it means you have to do it. So if it say he commanded us to do this, if you come across something that say Ali did this and the Prophet commanded us to do this, what you got to go with? Now, whether they agree so that they won't disagree and fight, it's all permissible because they try to go into usul. What's the foundations of the prayer? The foundations is standing, which they might consider this standing. So standing, bowing, prostration. Okay? So like you could look in the Quran where it refer to praying, standing, bowing, and some might use the word kneeling. So, those who kneel in prayer, those who prostrate in prayer, those who stand in prayer, those who bow in prayer. So usul, who deal with foundations, they look at the Quran and say, okay, in Quran it says standing. We can see where it says bowing, and we can see where it says prostration. So, to them, standing like this, and standing like this is still standing. So, therefore, being that they all still standing, all three of them is permissible. It doesn't invalidate the prayer. But the Rasul never did this or this. Okay? So, do it technically go against the Quran and Sunnah? This is where it get tricky. When you say you have to do it this way. When you say you have to do it this way, this is the only way it can be done, now you're going against the Sunnah. Now you saying it has to, because now you're putting a ruling on it. As in, this isn't permissible. You understand? So now you turning it into something else. Or the ones who do this. But neither one of these have a real leg to stand on other than they tied to these imams. The people tied to these imams. So, and then like I say, people who play with hadith, a da'if hadith is still a hadith. But why is it there? Is it there so you know not to fall into it? This is how you going to know that. In two occasions. One, you know it's there so that you won't fall into it. And it's a report. This is what people used to try to do. How you know you shouldn't fall into it? Because it contradicts what's authentic and sound and reported about it. It contradicts what's strong and fair was reported about it. Now, if it's in things like certain acts of ibadah, like saying Allahu Akbar 1,000 times. You understand? If it's doing things like dhikr and this and that, sometimes you will see that report. Because, cool, what's the problem in saying Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar 1,000 times? So sometimes you will see it in that case because it involves something like some type of dhikr of the tongue. Or just to give you a soft example, because we squeezing it in and I'm trying to wrap it up. So therefore, in these cases, when something is authentic and sound, especially numerous hadiths on it, and then there's hasan, strong, fair hadiths that's numerous on it, da'if hadith is what? You get rid of it. Especially if there's a sunnah, so it's authentic that this is in the sunnah, what happens? You get rid of it. Alright? Then from the Athar show that they went up on this, or they went up on this. You get rid of it. And this is from the Sharia. This is from the Sharia. This is what's legislated. So due to a lot of people not understanding these concepts, and then you have people who say, well, I study the Hanafi Madhab. All you have to do is ask, what book you studying? what book you studying from? Is you studying from somebody who really learned from a scholar? Or is you just studying from somebody who was an ex-black Muslim member who moved to the next black Muslim member, and they say everybody need to be Hanafi, so they refer to themselves as Hanafi, and you learn to them, but they ain't really want to learn from nobody but each other. Same with the Malikis. Now I will say this about the Asheris. I'm going to touch this last little part. Because this is something else I want to clear up. And then I'm done. Because of what I just said. So I'm explaining all this without labels. Because labels now is starting to blur. So now you have what they refer to as creeds. Oh yeah, alhamdulillah. I just thought I gotta touch the Aqeedah thing. So creeds. So you have the Athari Creed, which means the creed of the Muslims is to stick to the narrations. That's a creed. I'm Athari in creed because it comes from Athar. So when it comes to we need some proof, we need some dalil, we need narrations on it before we move on it. So we're not leaving Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma. We need a narration. Okay? So then you have other creeds, which you have the Asheris. The Asheris had their own little certain beliefs about Allah. Now I'm not gonna knock them. It's some of them who listen to my. Sometimes when I do videos, if I say something about the Asheri, the Nation of Islam, people start hitting dislike and unfollowing, or what they call it, unsubscribing. But not to keep them, but Asheris have a lot of, what I'm giving their prop is, a lot of them I know, they be pretty strong in Maliki fiqh. Some of the Africans I know, I give them props when it comes to the Maliki fiqh or Maliki fiqh, how they want to do it. But when you boil it down and you weigh it down, because like people, these creeds do confuse people, because some people be like, I'm Athari Creed, but they don't really know what it means. I'm Salafi, but they don't really know what it means. So when you know all this blurredness that's in there, then you can understand why some people will refer to themselves as Salafis. Because, or they may refer to themselves as Asheri. They may refer to themselves as Hanafi. So that if I'm Hanafi, I want it to be clear that I'm Hanafi, so when I go somewhere else, I want to deal with the Hanafis. I don't want to deal with the Malikis, because we're just going to have fitna between each other. I don't want to deal with the Shafi'is. You know what I'm saying? Me, when I go to a certain place and I know a kindergartner is teaching second grade because I got at least a 6th grade education, why am I going to go in there and sit in there and listen to that? Not that I won't learn something, but the chances of me hearing a whole lot of stuff that shouldn't be said because I know they're a kindergartner trying to teach second grade, why put myself through that? Now coming in, praying 5 times with them, alhamdulillah, because I'm there in the city, this is the closest masjid, I'm traveling, that's a different thing. But I'm going to avoid. Now if they on a certain thing, if it's a 2nd grade class, but I know it's a 6th grader teaching it, hey man, you know what I'm saying, like I say to D's, what you think, man, let's go check it out. If we start hearing some batil or it's going left, let's do what we do. Let's go and get up out of here, and then the next time we in the city, we gonna hit the phone book and look at some other masjid or start contacting people. What's a good masjid to go sit for some classes at? And I ain't gonna listen to nobody, oh well, such and such travel to that masjid, so the whole masjid is Bidah. No, we ain't listening to that. You know what I'm saying? We ain't listening to that. So you have creeds. Some people Asharian creed. Me, I'm Athari. I stick to the narrations. I stick to Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma. I'm not saying these madhabs is bad because they do help you implement Islam in a certain way, but you have to understand some of it you might be doing some things that there's no narrations for. You might be doing some things that actually go against what's authentic because you think this da'if is sound, but this ain't even something that they said they seen the Prophet do. They said they seen one of the companions do it. We not the follower of the companion when there's something that the Rasul commanded. We not a follower of Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, or Hanbal when there's something that the Rasul commanded. You understand? So let me close. This ain't gonna take nothing but a second. So some of these groups, they don't believe in Aqeedah. How is it that y'all could not believe in Aqeedah? Because they stick to madhabs and they have issues with hadiths. Because some of the stuff, or they have different schools of thoughts. They may be Mu'tazila, they may be Maturididi, and they may have certain things in them, just like the hadith where I said they study the Quran with an athar from Imam Ibn Umar. They study Quran, they recite it, they seek knowledge, they teach knowledge, but they say there's no such thing as the Qadr. So now, because of that, they gotta reject the hadiths that go with it. They gotta reject the Quran ayats that go with it in order to feed it to the people. What's the first way to trickery to do it? Feed it to the people and keep them away from Quran and hadiths. That's why, like some groups, they professionals at stockpiling you with a whole bunch of books, but they keeping you away from Quran and tafsirs, and they keeping you away from hadiths. Where you reading these books that so-called put these rulings in perspective for you. And then you might never come across the Quran ayat that says, be amongst the truthful. Or when you do come across that Quran ayat, be amongst the truthful, something in this book that may came from the opinion of Imam Malik may dilute that Quran ayat. You understand? So what's the bestest way for them to get you to fall into it? Keep you away from the Quran. May put emphasis on memorizing it, but not reading it and reading tafsirs for implementation tied with how the implementation was taught in hadiths. And then it could go on and on and on, especially when you learning from a jail cell where the blind led the blind, and then the blind led the blinder, and then the blind led the blinder till they led the blindest, and now you out here the blindest one of individual, but you think you see everything. Don't understand not even a portion of this, but they trying to teach. Now, when it comes to Aqeedah, because they say Aqeedah is false, I'm not even going to use the hadiths, right? And then just to show you some of their concept, I'm going to touch a little portion of hadith for some people who understand this so-called Aqeedah concept, how limited it is, but at the same time, I'm going to prove this as well. They say, because a lot of people say it, they say the first 13 years. And then some people will say 10. So we're going to put 10 years, because some people do say 10. The Rasul, and this is the problem, they say the Rasul only taught Tawheed. The best people say Aqeedah. The ones who say Aqeedah a little bit better than the ones that say Tawheed, because they have a stronger understanding. Some of the people, and I'm going to show y'all where it came from, because some people reject Aqeedah. They think using the word Aqeedah is a Wahhabi Salafi term. So they won't say he taught Aqeedah for the first 13 years. They're going to say he taught Tawheed. But the problem is, they all put an emphasis on only. And that's not true. And I'm finna prove this, especially when the people who want to limit it to Tawheed, because they have a problem with the term Aqeedah. Okay? Which is a belief system or system of belief. However you want to word it. That's basically what Aqeedah means. So we finna prove both of these concepts wrong right now. So in Aqeedah, Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 217. In that surah, in that ayah number 217, it refers to al-bir, right? What's righteousness? The ones who are righteous, in that ayat, it says they are the ones who believe in Allah. So what's Allah? That belief in Allah, Tawheed. Okay? So, Tawheed. They believe in the last day. They believe in the angels. They believe in the books. And they believe in the prophets. So in that Quran ayat, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what people refer to as the pillars of Aqeedah. Now some people go with 6. We're going to get into that. We just referring to Surah 2, ayah number 177. They had this in here. So, Surah 2, ayah number 103, it say you also have to believe in the unseen. So believing in the unseen also goes into Aqeedah. These are things that is mandatory that you have to believe in. The unseen, i.e., we can't see the jinn. We got to believe in them. We can't see the angels. Well, the angels is already there, but we can't see the jinn. We have to believe in it. We can't see the hellfire. We have to believe in it. We can't see Jannah, but we have to believe in it. Okay? So Surah number 2, ayah number 3, and then when you go and look into the categories that put these people in believing in the unseen. So I'm mentioning that ayah to also get people to understand that these 5 pillars, which the Quran ayah mentioned, or the Hadiths with 6 or 7, right? They're not the only things that belongs in the belief system. Now, how are we going to say, for the individuals that say that the Rasul taught for the first 13, and the ones who say 10 years, he only taught Tawheed? Did the Rasul not teach about the last day? Did the Rasul not teach about the angels? Did the Rasul not teach about the books that came before in these first 10 or 13 years? Did he also not teach about Prophet Musa? Huh? So if he did teach about these things, then what? He was teaching what? Aqeedah. Tawheed, Allah, is just the first pillar. So for the individuals who say he only taught for the first 13 years Tawheed, That's an inaccuracy. And it's unfortunate that they want to say that because they have a problem with the word Aqeedah because it's Wahhabi stuff. But there's proof the Rasul taught about the last day, the angels, the books, the prophet, and the unseen. Okay? During these first 10 years or the first 13 years, whatever you want to talk about. Now, did he only teach Aqeedah? Did he only teach about Allah, the last day, the angels, the books, and the prophets? La. Because like I mentioned in the other thing, he taught about legislations. Right? Legislations. What? Marriage. Which, instead of marriage, let me scratch that. We're going to put family. Or I like to say relationships. He taught about relationships because friendships, marriages, how you deal with your the relationship you have with your kids, your parents. This stuff was taught. How you deal with your neighbors. This stuff was also taught. How you do business. How you do business, because a lot of them was businessmen. How you do business. Contracts. All this was also taught. You understand? Law. Dealing with thieves. There was law that was taught. Okay? Being opposite of the disbelievers. So, all this was also taught during these first 10 years. There was more taught after that, but this is just to put in the concept to get people to understand he didn't only teach Aqeedah the first 13, 15 years. But he did teach Aqeedah, but he also taught business, relationships, and all these, and law, all these other things that fall up under particular fiqh categories. You understand? So, but Tawheed, which was the first pillar. Now, again, Aqeedah you can find in the Quran. Ayah number 177. Also ayah number, ayah surah 2, ayah number 177. In surah 2, ayah number 285, it put belief in Allah, belief in the angels, belief in the books, and belief in the prophets. In 285, it doesn't have the last day, but it has Allah, the angels, the books, and the prophet. So, when you come to the Hadith, so in the Hadith, you will see the Hadith of Jibreel, and there's different narrations. So you will have some that say belief in Allah, the last day, the angels, the books, the prophet. Now this is the order in the Quran. In the Hadith, this isn't the order. Last day doesn't come after Allah. So for anybody who wanna argue and dispute, they hit me up talking about you ain't got the order and weird stuff. So when it comes to the Hadith is gonna list Allah, last day, angels, books, prophet, and the Qadr, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But some hadiths is going to have the meeting with Allah, and then some hadiths is going to have the resurrection, or they might word it as day of judgment. So in some you will see it listed as 7. Then in some they just go with the hadith where you got Allah, the Quran ayat, Allah, last day, angels, books, and prophet, which is 5. So that's why sometimes you see the list of Aqeedah with 5, 6, or 7. With the ones with 7, they say the last day, the meeting with Allah, the resurrection, and the day of judgment. All of them is the exact same thing. So they deduce that 7 down to 6. And then it'll have the Qadr. So that's why sometimes you will see 5, 6, or 7 when you're dealing with the hadiths. But all of them is part of Aqeedah, as well as the unseen, which you will see in the Quran, but you won't see in the hadith, because there's more that you have to believe in. So the meeting with the last day, you have some people who had issues saying we're not going to meet Allah on the last day. We're not going to see Allah. So They're rejecting that belief system. That's why you have some Muslims who call themselves Muslims for particular groups that says there is no heaven or no hell. Or we ain't going to talk about those groups. We're going to talk about the Jahmiyyah, who said this, that heaven and hell wasn't, they were just concepts on earth. This is groups, the Jahmiyyah. I got a class where I put it down. Now, and they didn't believe in the meeting of Allah or us seeing Allah. Why? But how y'all coming up with that when you read your Quran, when you study Hadiths? But they got to reject those ayahs to come up with that beliefs. So, Surah 29, ayah number 5. Allah Azza wa Jal informs us, whoever hopes for the meeting with Allah. And in Arabic, yes, it does say meeting. Whoever hopes for the meeting with Allah, you tell the Rasul, let them know that Allah has appointed a time that is surely going to come. So if Allah appointed a time for us to meet him, what is that, y'all? That's the Qadr. So how do you have these individuals that I was telling y'all in the hadith that when he came to ask Ibn Umar about him, how they saying the Qadr don't exist when you understand your Quran where Allah is talking about an appointed time and shortly to come? That's Allah's Qadr. How y'all saying the Qadr don't exist? But these is also individuals who say we not gonna meet Allah. When Allah says, for the ones who hope for the meeting with Allah, just know for sure it's gonna happen. Whether it's going to be a good meeting or a bad one. Okay? So, when you come to Surah number 2, again, that's in Surah 29, ayat number 5, that discuss the meeting of Allah. So, when you see it in hadiths, or when you come across the people who say we not going to meet Allah, we not going to see Allah, Allah tell us in the Quran. So, like I said, some translations I have meeting with Allah, some have last day, some have day of judgment, some have a resurrection, but all of them is the exact same thing, technically. So then, how they rejecting Aqeedah? How they saying Aqeedah not a real thing? I'm using the Quran to prove these things. But they think Aqeedah is Wahhabi stuff, so they reject it. So they start to say stuff like Allah only taught Tawheed for the first 13 and 10 years of Islam, when he definitely taught about the books, because it talks about the people of the book. It talks about who was their prophet and the messenger in order for them to be the people of the book. So how was that not taught? How was that not taught? So it wasn't just Tawheed, it was Aqeedah, and Tawheed is a part of Aqeedah. But due to these misconceptions about Wahhabism, they're rejecting the Quran and don't realize it. Okay? Surah number 2, ayah number 28. Where Allah Azza wa Jal says, how can you disbelieve? How can you deny? How can you doubt Allah? As a question. When you were dead, and then Allah gave you life. Before your parent got pregnant, you wasn't alive. You wasn't in this world. Right? So Allah said, how can you disbelieve? How can you doubt Allah? How can you deny Allah when there was a time when you didn't even exist in this life? Then Allah gave you life. Then Allah will cause you to die. So after we live some life, whether it's a day, whether we're born dead but lived in the womb, whether it's 100 years, whether it's a year, and like I said, whether it's a day, whether it's 5 minutes, Allah gave us life. Then Allah caused us to die. Then Allah will bring us back to life. What is that, y'all? The resurrection. That's the resurrection. So for these individuals who deny the resurrection in Aqeedah, that don't believe in it, for the individuals who say once you die, that's it. That's your hell. Your hell is on earth, depending on how you live. Your conditions is, if you live in a good life, you in Jannah. If you live in a bad life, you in hell. And once you dead, you just dead. Okay? They don't understand when they reading it. This is referring to the resurrection, which is what? Listed in your hadith on Aqeedah. Alright? So y'all can see where these concepts, where they come in and rejecting certain things because they think it comes from particular people that they don't like, who refutes them with dalil from Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma. Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma. But a lot of people don't have this. Why? Because they hide Quran and Sunnah from them and Ijma from them. We don't do tafsirs. We don't do hadiths. We just do the fiqh of the madhabs that teach you all the rulings on how to implement it. Don't worry about knowing none of the other stuff. Just stick to this. Batil. Now, it continues on and say, and then to him you will return. What is that, y'all? When you return to Allah, what's that, y'all? That meeting with Allah. That meeting with Allah that they still reject. So in these early days, in the first 10, 13 years, whichever one they choose, Allah taught. It's in Quran al-Kareem. We gonna meet Allah. We gonna return to Allah. Whether it's a good meeting or a bad one. We gonna be resurrected. We gonna be resurrected. We're gonna be judged. All of this comes from the Quran. But they reject it because they call it Wahhabi and Salafi stuff. And the reason why they do this, because this started with Salafis that don't know how to treat people. You understand? Because they bump into Salafis that don't know how to treat nobody, who treat people the way that the Salaf didn't treat people. So now they start to attack anything that the Salafis talk about. Just like they did with Abdul Wahab. Oh, well, he fought and killed Muslims. Was that because Muslims was fighting and killing Muslims that thought like he did? Because they wanted Quran and Sunnah and Ijma? Did he fight or did he fight back? But because they attached these things to him, they reject it because they didn't like him. And right now in this daytime, because a lot of Muslims don't like Salafis. Because at a point in time, they're getting better, but the scholars had to step in. It was at a time, bruh, where the Salafis, man, they don't like them. So when you say, like, if I put Ibn Taymiyyah in a heading of my video, people gonna comment about Wahabism. People gonna come, but they're gonna attack Ibn Taymiyyah because the Salafis learned that horrible manners and raggedy attitude they got from Ibn Taymiyyah, which they didn't, because Ibn Taymiyyah wasn't like that. Abdul Wahab wasn't like that. Imam Ahmed, Shafi'i, they wasn't like that. But they're going to attack that. Just like the Hanafis and these groups, they attack Imam Shafi'i and Hanbal because they talking about they people of Hadith. They only know Hadith. They don't understand fiqh. When in order to come up with a fiqh ruling, you need Quran, Sunnah, Ijma. When Allah refers, like I say, when we refer to it, when an issue arises, refer it back to Allah and His Messenger. What's that? Because we not there where the Rasul, where we can go ask the Rasul. But when we go to the Rasul and ask a question and he answer it, he's given us a hadith. He's given us a hadith. So you got to have that in order to come up with a fiqh ruling that's in accordance with the Quran and Sunnah. Now, of course, there's fiqh on certain things that's mubah. What's the fiqh of this? Some will say it's mandatory because they might see a report where it says don't go outside without your head covered. I know from the Hanafi madhab, some of them say you can't go in a restroom without your head covered. Some say that they seen a hadith with that. That's why, like, sometimes when you go into the Hanafi masjid, they'll have a box of these in there, and you'll see when they come in, they'll put them on. Because they feel like you can't pray without your head covered, or if they go in the restroom, their head got to be covered. But then when they leave the masjid, they take them off and put them back in the box. This is from their madhab. You know what I'm saying? Well, at least the Hanafis I came across, they implemented and say it's from the madhab. I never seen it. I did see a little something about them having their hair covered when they go in the restroom. You know what I'm saying? So, alhamdulillah, man. So this is just a crash course, something to get y'all to understand. It's in the space. So go back, like I say, the new shahadas, review it, write it down, study it, take notes, because when I see y'all, you know what I'm saying, it's going to be time for first 48. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to be trying to convict you of being what? Miskin. You understand? I'm going to try to convict you of being miskin. So, let me get up out of here, man. I done ran long. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.